Andrew has a question here, which I think is relevant right now while we're going through all of this. Andrew wants to know, in your mind, has mixing in the box really become indistinguishable now from using the hardware that the plugins were based on in the first place?
Um, yeah, it's kind of a bugbear for me, actually. I think that it doesn't matter. First of all, like it doesn't matter if the plugins sound exactly like the hardware. If you don't have the hardware, you'll never know. And to say, are they as good as? Yes, they're absolutely as good as. Do they sound identical? Well, no, but no two hardware boxes sound identical, especially when you get into vintage gear. I mean, I own an RCA BA6A, which is a compressor. It's a mono limiter that weighs about 400 pounds, and it sounds great when you put it on stuff. And it I tried to find a buddy for it for years, and I never found one that sounded anything like the one I already owned. And so there were two that I bought that I had to sell again. There were two that I got and didn't buy because they didn't sound right. So the idea that the plugins have to sound exactly like the gear is, I think that's the mistake. They definitely have the feel of the gear. They have that same sort of color. So if you know an 1176, you're not going to be disappointed with an 1176 plugin. It has all the same characteristics. The knobs are laid out the exact same way. But at the same time, 1176s only have four possible ratios plus different combinations of slamming the buttons in. And they're one of the most versatile compressors on the planet. And LA2A, all it has is a threshold control. That's it. So to be able to say, well, you know what? I think I want a colorful compressor, but I want all of the controls on it. And this is not just like touting Omnichannel. There are lots and lots of plugins that have the style of compressor that's the same as certain hardware pieces, but it gives you all of the control. Like here, if you're in FET, it's an 1176 is probably the closest thing to this. And if you go to infinity to 1, that's like pushing all the buttons in. But instead of only having infinity to 1 and then 20, 12, 8, and 4 to 1, you've got continuous control over your ratio. On 1176, you have continuous control over attack and release, but if you switch to opto mode, which would be like an LA2A, you still have continuous control over the ratio, which you had no control over, and control over the attack and the release. So you can get the style of compression, and those styles are very, very different. Opto, FET, and VCA being the sort of main three. And then people talk about Varimu, but technically that's just any compressor with a tube in it, because that's what Varimu means. But you've got control over every single parameter within it. So in a lot of ways, the in-the-box processing is way more flexible, which can be intimidating when you're learning. It's nice to have something with just two knobs on it. But it can give you the characters. So yeah, I don't think that there's any reason that you would have to mix one way or the other.
While we're talking about plugins with only a couple of faders, I mean, you raised a point which is a good one, which is a lot of time people who are learning can dig themselves into a very deep hole that is only really got out of by undoing everything and starting again. How do you feel about plugins like Arvox and the Renaissance bundle? Because I mean, obviously Arvox sounds amazing on a bunch of different things, and it literally has like
There it is.
three faders, right?
Well, it's got three, and I've never used two of them. I mean, I just pull the compression down until it sounds good. No, I think they're great. But the only thing is, obviously, while you're learning, you really do need to understand what's probably going on under the hood. Because what if Arvox has worked on vocals for you for a year straight, every single thing you've mixed, and then all of a sudden you're mixing something and you put Arvox on, and it's like, oh, wow, that's not it. I don't like it on this. But you need to do something to the vocal, and you think it's probably compression. Now, all of a sudden, you have to jump off a cliff into the swimming pool. You have cliffs by your swimming pool. It's a terrible analogy. Anyway, now you've got to start going through all your other dynamics plugins and try and find a compressor that works, but you may not understand how compressors work. So I think it's really great to have the very simple ones that just get the job done, but you do also need to spend some time with ones that give you control. Like one of the things, I'm going to completely mess this mix up, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter.